Welcome to USA Biz Party, to the party after the party, the chat after the chat. I am your host, Anna Scheller. And today, all of this month, the month of March, we've been talking about branding. And my special guest host today was Christine, or still is, she is, Christine Gritmon. Christine is the host of Chat About Brand every Tuesday right before we run our chat. So she's on at noon Eastern Time. She's a social media trainer. She is a personal branding coach, a micro business mega fan, woo, a gift machine. If you have seen any of her tweets, you know that this woman loves gifts. And she is a marketing Twitter expert. So without further ado, let me bring Christine on board with me. Christine, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me, Anna. This is great.
Yeah, it's so funny because I think that we've been kind of a small chat for a while. And then when we did our telesummit, somebody said, you need to connect with Christine. And it's almost like you knew me before I knew you. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. This is pretty fun.
That's what I love the most about Twitter. Everyone just wants to support each other, and you can make so many connections. And there's just a really great synergy, especially in marketing Twitter.
There really is. And it actually lends very well to our discussion about branding, about personal branding. So before we move on, I do want to say thank you to those of you who are joining us live. Please say hello in the chat. If you know me at all well, you know I will post your comments because we love to get interaction from those who are watching us. And this is actually going to become a TV show as well. So to my TV audience, thank you for being with us. This is amazing. I'm so glad. And also, if you are participating in the chat, please follow the other people in the chat. Part of being in a chat is that we're helping each other grow our followings, because as we grow our followings, we're able to reach more people and grow our businesses. So we have our first hello from John Buglino. John, thank you so much. I love John because he's really done a super job of using personal branding. He uses it quite effectively. He was with one company about 2 years ago. He's with Uptessa. And when I think of Uptessa, I'll be honest, I think of John. I think of John Buglino.
That's why it's good to have employees with personal brands. I know some companies, we talked about it before, some companies are a little threatened by that. They're like, well, I don't want you building your brand. I want you building my brand. But it can be such a huge advantage if someone's able to get out there and make those relationships, because it reflects well on the brand and it puts the brand in people's heads.
Well, it does. I mean, like I said, John is a great example. So one of the questions that came up that I wanted to go a little deeper in is talking about, we talk about branding, and I think a lot of people are beginning to understand the power of personal branding, whether it's for your business as an entrepreneur or you as an employee or someone unemployed who needs to find opportunities. But one of the things I think that's really important to discuss is, how do we establish our brand? Do we need colors, logos? When we think of brand, that's what we think of. When I think of Wendy's, I think of the little girl in the circle. I know Dave is part of that, the guy that founded it, but I think of the little girl in the circle. So you want to comment about that?
Yeah, well, branding can be done in all sorts of different ways. Someone like me, obviously, I've embraced the color red, and my face is a huge part of my brand. I'm sort of my own mascot. I'm my own Wendy. But when it comes down to it, you can brand yourself in all sorts of different ways, however you shine best. I know people who are not comfortable hopping on camera like this. They don't want their face all over everything. That is fine. They put their words all over everything or their brain all over everything. You can brand whatever brands you is whatever is going to show you in your best light, whatever you can maintain consistently in a recognizable way, and whatever is going to be just of greatest value in terms of getting your message out there to the right people in the way that you would like it to be received. So you can not have your picture anywhere, you cannot have a color, but you can have a really great blog, and people know you from that. You're recognizable from that. They can come back and they know that they are reading something from the same person, thus meaning those brand touches are compounding as opposed to being standalones. Any way that you can show up in a way that will be recognizable so that people will know if they've seen you before, and if they haven't seen you before, they know that they want to see you again, is really what's going to brand you. And making that consistent, whatever you can maintain in a way that won't be too painful, is really key. A lot of people worry that by branding themselves, they'll be boxing themselves in, or they'll be playing a role. It'll feel somehow artificial because they're sort of drawing these guidelines. But if it feels fake, those are the wrong guidelines. You need to kind of move those out in a different direction, because ultimately personal branding isn't about creating this whole mystique around you. It's about taking what's already there, pumping some of it up to 11, and just kind of showing yourself as clearly, as straightforwardly, and as memorably and recognizably as possible. It does not have to be colors or logos. Those are just kind of window dressing. It has to be the substance of what you're going to be recognized for and how you're going to show up consistently.
That, it's so funny how you said that. I do want to say hello. We have Stephen Ford. Stephen joined us for the first time this week. He must be one of your peeps. So I've not met Stephen before. Thank you, Stephen. And if I remember right, I think he's from Scotland. Did I get that right, Stephen?
I think so, yeah. I met Stephen, I forget if it was through Clubhouse or if it was through Twitter Spaces, but I co-host with Madeline Sklar. Madeline Sklar has her fabulous Smarter Twitter chats on Thursdays, and that's hers. And then she has brought me in to co-host the Spaces after chat that she does at 5 p.m. on Thursdays after that. So I met Stephen either on Clubhouse or Spaces through Madeline.
Yep, he says, yep. So
yep.
There we go. That's it. And then we have Christopher Robbins, not to be confused with Winnie the Pooh's pal.
Yeah, he's into lions, apparently, not bears.
No,
lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my.
He actually, I got to know him through my Black Belt Selling podcast that I used to have.
Nice.
And so we've stayed in touch through Facebook. So again, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. One of the things that you said that I'd really like to touch on is that the brand needs to be authentic to who we are.
Yeah.
And we don't want to create so many contraptions around the brand that it's difficult to maintain that brand. So where have you seen that? I'm kind of throwing these questions out at her.
That's fine.
So those are the fun questions, right? The ones that you don't have the prepared answers for. Those are the best ones.
Keeping it real.
Very real. Last week was so real. Anyway, that's a whole other story. So anyway, but getting back, where have you seen extremely consistent personal brands, and where have you seen it maybe not be as consistent and possibly hurt the individual or the company instead of helping the company?
I won't get specific about where I've seen it not work, but anything that really just has too much of a veneer of perfection on it, and especially so this works for them. I'm not in their target audience, but I will say that kind of hustle bro culture where it's all about, showing, first of all, they intersperse material indicators of success, like posing with hot cars or whatever, with, platitudes about how you have to hustle your face off if you want it bad enough. And that type of, people call it hustle porn, and that whole culture, yes, it's not for me, but also, that's not that real. That's not that relatable. That's not something that feels to me like a human talking to me. It feels like a message talking to me that happens to be using humans. That concept is not so terrible, but, that particular message feels very not human to me. There are, motivational speakers out there who feel it's not just about imperfection, because some of them will highlight past stories of struggle or whatever in a way to try to get you to trust them. But there's just something about their delivery, something about their messaging, something about just the plasticity of it all, which is not the proper word of the use, plasticity, but just kind of, it just kind of feels fake. There's just something falling short. It's not the lack of vulnerable or relatable stories. It's the fact that they feel too strategic in their use. I feel like I jive with brands, and especially personal brands, where it does feel, you got to hit that sweet spot of aspirational and relatable. So it has to feel like a person who you know and could talk to and could hang with, but at the same time, if they're just like you, if they don't have anything kind of on you, then you may not be as inclined to follow them, because ideally we want to surround ourselves with people and influences that will make us better. So it's a tricky balance, but I feel like people can achieve that if they get out of their heads about creating a role for themselves, and they realize that it's about teasing out the parts of yourself and uncovering the parts of yourself that you need to put out there. One thing I like to say is that the things that you feel the need to suppress to fit in or be professional or be whatever are usually the things that you need to rock out in order to stand out and in order to be your truest self. The things that you would feel the need to suppress to fit in are the things that will help you stand out. But again, if you're inventing something, first of all, people are going to sense it. They're going to sense that it's an invention. They're going to sense that it's not something real. But also that's creating so much more work, not just the creation of that invention, but maintaining it. You're playing a role. You're adding an acting gig on top of the work you're actually trying to do. And you shouldn't steal focus from that. The work you're trying to do should be the focus. That's what pays you, ideally. And that's what gets you thought leadership and influence. So I say energy is much better spent when it comes to figuring out your personal brand. It's much better spent observing and figuring out what you put out there that resonates with others, but that is also genuine to you. What you put out there that gives people the feeling that you want to give them. What you put out there that puts thoughts in people's heads that you want them to have. And focusing on how you can put your energy towards those places that are real and natural and came from you, rather than putting so much energy towards all the bells and whistles. Some of that can come later. You can always add bells and whistles. You can be a personal brand and, figure out a logo or a color scheme later. It's really about what you can put out there that is going to make you memorable and that you can maintain throughout, and that's going to be real and recognizable to others.
Agreed. I love it because, I love how I wrote down some notes here. So aspirational and relatable. See, not everybody wants to be Grant Cardone. Mm-hmm. Not everybody wants to be a megastar. Some people just want to achieve a certain level of success, to know that they have achieved what they were looking for in the first place. And I think something that's really important in all this too, Christina, or mm-hmm. Christine, sorry, I know so many Christinas, is clarity.
Yeah.
It's clarity. Because I think clarity, when you are clear, it kind of gets rid of all of the extraneous, all of the foo-foo stuff that we tend to want to bring in. And it helps us solidify our brand. It helps us solidify our message and attract the people and the opportunities that we are best suited for.
Yeah, because if you're flailing around trying to be all things to all people and trying to give everything equal emphasis, I mean, none of it's going to land. And that's also very inefficient in terms of your own energy and efforts. The nice thing about a brand is it's not fake and it's not putting you in a fake box, but it is giving you sort of those guidelines so that it just simplifies the thought process a little easier when you're putting something out there of, okay, it fits within these parameters that I've put in place for my brand. And you can stray outside them a little bit, but the path is the path. And so while it is about defining and it is about narrowing things down, it's about making things simpler for yourself, not harder.
There you go. Yeah, for sure. And that leads actually to my next question. Mm-hmm. And oh, by the way, if you have a question for Christine, so we've had some amazing comments. Steve said he couldn't agree more. And of course, John is saying he loves it. So we would really love to have your comments. And even if you are on the replay and you're watching, please go ahead and you can comment in the tweet or whatever thread has gotten started. We would love to. I'll go back and we'll respond.
Yeah,
and
I'll pop into the comment thread. I'm good with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one other question that's come up, and it wasn't one we addressed inside the chat itself, but another question that came up was one about, so how many platforms do I have to be across? Do I have to do this on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and now Snapchat and now we've got Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces. I mean, the choices are dizzying, to be quite frank.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about where should I be? Where do I need to be? And a follow-up question for me would be, what if my peeps really aren't on Twitter, but I like Twitter? Should I still be on Twitter?
So the short answer is no, you don't have to be everywhere. The conventional answer that most people would give is you should be where your audience is. But I wouldn't say I disagree with it, but I think perhaps a stronger consideration is you should be where you're going to shine. So let's say your audience, loves consuming video, but you hate video. If you decide that you're going to go hard on video in your strategy is not going to actually happen. You're not going to do it. It's not going to be as natural. It's not going to be as high quality. It's not going to be as joyful for you because it's going to be a chore. So I think that the type of content that you enjoy creating, the types of conversations that show you off the best, I think those need to be considerations as well, because each of the social media platforms really does have its own unique culture, its own unique conversational conventions, its own unique algorithm. They all like conversations, but the specifics vary. So I think that the thing you won't hate doing is going to be what shows you off the best. That's going to be the platform that you're able to grow the best on and that you're able to brand the best on. So I think taking into consideration what you do and don't enjoy doing is huge. I have some clients who hate certain platforms. I've had a few clients where they've said straight up, I hate Facebook. But unfortunately, they've been in an industry where Facebook is important for discoverability. So what I've done with them is I've just helped them make their profiles really, really strong so that the profiles give as much information as possible to someone finding them, but then making it really clear, hey, go find us on Instagram. That's where we really hang out. Or I also set up their automatic message when someone messages their Facebook page. Hey, we'd love to talk to you. Email us at blah, 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 or call us at blah, blah, blah. And if you keep trying to message them, it'll keep telling you to email or call, because that's not really where the person wants to put their energy. And so because I gave that client the freedom to not have to worry so much about Facebook, that client has since been doing really well on Instagram to a degree that she wasn't expecting, because she's realized, okay, now that I have the fear of Facebook and that being kind of the big bad that I have to deal with out of the way, she discovered she was able to kind of fall in love with Instagram and find it as a way of expressing herself professionally. That said, you mentioned, what if my audience is not on Twitter? Do I have to be on Twitter? I myself had an interesting journey with Twitter. For a long time, I was resentful of the fact that my Twitter audience was the largest. I had the largest following on Twitter as compared to my Facebook page or my Instagram profile. And that frustrated me because my client base of small business owners who I was teaching how to do their own social media better, they by definition weren't really on social media very much, but if they were on it, they were going to be on Facebook, maybe Instagram. They were not Twitter people at all. The Twitter people, the people who I was doing so well with as an audience, was the audience of my peers. It was fellow social media marketers. And I was like, well, they're not going to hire me, so Twitter isn't making me money, but Twitter's doing the best. It's catching on. It's resonating. This is annoying. Like, I wanted Facebook to do the best, and then Instagram, and then Twitter. And it was the exact opposite. I had the lowest number of followers on my Facebook page, and then Instagram, then Twitter. So, couple things. First of all, recognize opportunities that you may not be seeing. So in my case, first of all, I realized that that Twitter audience of my peers, they weren't hiring me to teach them how to do social media, but they were providing visibility opportunities, collaboration opportunities, guest opportunities, speaking opportunities. So once I started moving more in that direction, I realized, okay, well, that is something that I'm interested in. It's helping build my thought leadership. It's getting my name out there. And it has started really leading to a bunch of clients, which is fantastic. But I also tweaked my offerings. I said, okay, so the audience I think I want is not an audience I'm going to get via social media. Here's the audience I'm getting via social media. What do they need? Because this is an audience where clearly my message and my branding is resonating with them somehow. Something is working. So how can I take what's working and put it to greater use for myself? And so that actually led to my sort of brand evolution last September, where I decided to kind of put my little flag in the ground of personal branding. I realized that that is a service that I can help fellow marketers with, because so many people, I mean, we're the last person we market in a lot of cases. People say, yeah, I'm a marketer. I market other people. I'm in the background. I don't want to put myself out there, but it's fear. Like, that, and some of it is resources, but you know, people are just kind of hesitant to market themselves. So I realized, well, that's something I can help people with. And also just in general, since I sort of defined myself as personal branding girl, it was only back in September. I launched my Twitter chat about brand. I launched a new Facebook Live show on Fridays. Let's talk about brand, all brand, brand, brand. I cannot tell you how many more opportunities have been coming my way, and better opportunities. I'm getting better clients. I'm getting better speaking gigs, which are actually leading to clients because those better speaking gigs have better audiences. I'm getting to guest on shows like this. I'm guesting on things all the time now, and it's all relevant because people know what they're getting, because I branded myself as talking about brand. And it's been amazing. So sorry, to get back to the original conversation, which is where should I be? Be what's going to show you off the best. But at the same time, if you find you're out there, you're doing your thing and something is working, even if it's not what you were expecting to be working, and even if it's not the ball you had your eye on, if that's the ball that's going in the hoop or the net or whatever, maybe shift your strategy. Maybe shift your strategy to say, well, this is working. This is resonating. Maybe I should shift my strategy to reprioritize that and analyze how I can put that to work for me.
Absolutely. That, you know, I think that is interesting how you share that evolution, because
yeah, it's been a ride.
Yeah, I bet, you know, I mean, when I started on Twitter, it was with Sam Kelly, and I got my first speaking gig. Yeah, she's marvelous. She's amazing.
I got to get out there. I'm an Irish citizen. My mom's from Ireland, so I got to get my butt out there and speak for her Women Inspire network one of these years.
Well, the funny thing is the first one she did, I got to speak. That's how I got my first international speaking gig.
Exciting.
Yeah, and that's a whole story. That is really the essence of the foundation of my Twitter story, is how I ended up in Ireland as a result. And you know, I walked into this room. Granted, I had a broken arm. Again, long story, but I walked in and I knew these women. There was not an introduction. It wasn't, oh, hi, I'm Michelle. It's Michelle. It's so nice to finally meet you. Oh, Anna, it's great to meet you. I mean, it was like we'd been old friends for a very long time.
Social media really does that. And I get that at conferences like crazy. In fact, this past year has been fascinating because right before the pandemic started was Social Media Marketing World, where I was hanging out with like hundreds of people. So I'm glad I got that right before it all shut down. But a lot of these relationships, I've actually done a better job of maintaining them online I've been talking to the people I'd normally be attending conferences with throughout the year. I've been talking to them more one-on-one this year and more regularly this year than I think I would if we had those in-person opportunities like we were used to doing. But it's been fantastic to have those connections maintained and to be able to use social media to talk to these people all day from all over the world. And when we do get to meet up in person again, it is a family reunion. It is a homecoming. It is just the energy of it. I just recently found out what my first conference back in the world is going to be. It's in August. I will be long vaccinated by then, which is great. And it's just I can't wait to take these relationships that we've been maintaining online all of this time and turn it into hugs. And so
Yes.
that's what I'm looking forward to doing again.
For sure. Well, let me just throw up a couple of comments. Leonora, excuse me, it's not Leonora. She says consistency is key to promote yourself.
Yeah.
And thank you. She was on a panel last week where we were talking about branding in women. So that was very fun. I'm going to do more and more of those because that was amazing to have all of these different ideas. John says you are doing some incredible things, and he has met so many people from that event.
Oh my goodness. I'm a fully fledged member of that particular cult. I am absolutely part of the whole social media marketing world clique where at this point I still get a lot out of going to sessions. I learn something every single year because they have such good speakers, but the real reason I go, the thing that's so exciting to me at this point is that I get to reunite with so many friends and make new ones and just building relationships. When I was early in this industry, I only joined the social media industry really in like 2016. And the first few conferences I went to, I was there for the sessions and I didn't do as much networking. Even though I'm a very people-y person, I just kind of didn't know how it all worked. And then people started telling me, oh, if you're going to go to a conference, don't just network with the hashtag during, though certainly do that, but network before the conference with people who are going and using the hashtag and make lists and all these things and, talk to people about meeting up. And so you walk into that room full of strangers with people who are already excited to meet you. And that more than anything else that I have learned in these past 5 years in business, that is number one, which is if you can put yourself in a position where you have talked to people and built relationships in a personable enough way online that you can walk into a room and there's people who are excited to meet you, it's something anyone can do. You don't have to have reached a certain level of professional success to do it. You just have to be willing to put in the time and the energy towards having those conversations that build those relationships.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're at the end of our time, and just maybe one last golden nugget that you have for our listening audience, those that are with us on social media, those that are with us watching the TV show, or if you're listening to this on the podcast live, whatever you're doing, I just want to say thank you for joining us, number one. And I really would love, I'm so excited that Christine, she just jumped. I have to tell you, when I said, can you join us? She said, when?
Yeah.
When? Yeah, like it's a no-brainer. But one last piece of advice maybe, and then of course we want to invite people to join Chat About Brand. When you're done with Chat About Brand, then you need to jump to USA Biz Party because we're all one big happy family. But one last thing you'd like to share with the group.
One really big thing is that people feel weird about putting themselves forward and putting themselves out there. And it kind of mostly breaks down to either thinking they're not that interesting or that special, or thinking there's something like unseemly and show-offy about putting themselves out there. And what I want to say either way is that there is somebody who should be finding you. There is somebody who is going to benefit from having you in their lives, even if it's just virtually. There is someone out there who needs to find you. Don't hide yourself from them. Don't make it hard. You can improve someone else's life by putting yourself out there and being findable. And yes, you do, no matter who you are, you know something that someone else doesn't. So don't be selfish and hide. Be generous and put yourself out there. Let them find you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And how do people find you for those who may not be as familiar with Christine Gritmon as we are?
Well, I am the only Christine Gritmon, so that's a good start. So if you look up Christine Gritmon, it's going to be me. I'm Gritmon.com. I'm C Gritmon on Twitter and Instagram, Christine Gritmon and Christine Gritmon Inc. on LinkedIn, Christine Gritmon Inc. on Facebook. And the best times and places to find me are Tuesdays at 12 noon Eastern on Twitter for Chat About Brand, where we discuss the same topic that on Fridays at noon Eastern, I talk about with a live guest on my interview show, Let's Talk About Brand, which is simulcast at noon on Fridays on Facebook Live, Twitter, and Periscope.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Christine, for joining me today on USA Biz Party.
Thanks for having me.
And for those of you who are curious about USA Biz Party, please join us every Tuesday afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It doesn't change whether it's daylight savings time or not. It's always going to be 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We would love to have you join. If you're not familiar with how a Twitter chat goes, just jump in. Everybody's friendly, and we will help make you feel at home. Thank you for joining me again today. It was lovely to have you with me, and we'll see you again next week. Next week, we're going to be talking about logos, something very important in branding. So again, thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next week.